Welcome back to the IHSN Roundtable. We're live at El Rey, and before I turn this over to Tim Smith, I want to remind you that we've got a trivia question out there that has not been answered, so there's free food from El Rey on the table. And the question is, what coach at York Institute is a former coach at Oneida? It can be any sport, head coach or assistant coach. What coach at York Institute is a former coach at Oneida? Without saying it, do you know the answer?
No.
Okay. So
I don't want to lose on a technicality again.
No, you were close. You were close. No one has got it yet. I thought it was going to be an easy question. Maybe it's not as easy as I thought. But if you know the answer, you can text us 539-4616. Okay, it's time for our Black Cat Legend of the Game. We thank Black Cat for sponsoring this segment with us each week. Hope everybody got out to Music on Main this past Saturday.
It was great. I got a chance to go down there.
Did you have some chili?
I did have some chili, some of the winning chili. And then I got to peruse the Black Cat. If you haven't done that, you need to take some time and go do that. My son loves vinyl records. They've got quite a selection there, and they're building this history museum, Oneida History Museum. Right now it's just in a couple of cases, but you can go look at that. It's really neat, and so I'm looking forward to when they get the whole thing open. But yeah, thankful the Black Cat's bringing you the legends of the game.
All right, so we've brought several legends so far. We had Bill Hall on. Of course, he's a legend at both Oneida and Scott High. We had Mike Swain from Oneida last week. We had Harris Keaton from Scott High last week. So now we're gonna slow it down just a little bit, and we're gonna start alternating it. So this week's gonna be Oneida. Next week's gonna be Scott High. We don't know who that's gonna be yet. We wouldn't tell if we did know.
Neither do I.
But we'll have
figure
it out.
Yeah.
This week's legend of the game, former Oneida quarterback Stan Pennington. And Tim, I had to ask you.
Yes.
I had to ask you before we came back while we were in break, when you started.
Yeah.
You started in 1990. Stan was a sophomore. Tim has been doing this now. This is his 32nd year, so he's getting old.
Or 33, if you
30,
do the correct
Sorry,
math.
this is your 33rd year. Yes, I'm not a mathematician. My point, though, still stands, and that is, Stan Pennington, you are getting old.
Well, yes.
Got a son who just graduated high school.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. First of all, it's a pleasure to be sitting here with Tim and Rick. They're the legends. Colin, I listened to them when I was in high school. Listen to Tim call my own name even after the goal. Listen to Rick call the Scott games, and I don't think he got to call one of my games, but luckily he got to call one of my son's games this past year. And Rick, thank you for the nice words and everything you said, and really enjoyed listening to your call.
I go way back with your family. Luther and I used to play adult basketball. We used to keep adult leagues going, and we played a lot of basketball.
Oh, by the way, Dad did say you need to tell the score a little more often.
Well,
hey, don't worry, Rick, because he definitely told me that too.
I've had people for these 30 years say that, and finally, a friend of mine came up with it, says, "I understand why you don't give the score, because Scott High's behind." And I said, "Well, that does change the perspective a lot, So,
but thank you guys. Like I said, listening to you guys, it was always a pleasure, and I still listen to this day. So.
Well, I'm sorry, Ben already broke our rule. We weren't going to mention Bill Hall because he didn't mention you.
Well,
and we've both been upset about that.
Well, yeah, that's, Bill. No, Bill's the reason that got Oneida basketball back into it. But the real, I've been thinking about this since we've talked, but you talked about how the early 90s kind of spoiled Oneida.
Yeah.
I was thinking back, Tim Neville started Tim's Little Indians back when I was in the 3rd grade. And that was kind of the first junior pro, I think, in the county maybe, that I can remember. And I remember we had 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders wore old football jerseys from Coach May had donated. And my dad has film in the old gym. There's kids sitting all the way down the wall across the stage. There's probably 50 kids, 3rd through 5th grade, playing basketball. And Tim Neville. And I think my 6th grade year was the first year that there was a true junior pro league. I remember Steve Thompson and Tom Lewis was my coach. And that was the year I remember playing against Kyle Keaton and all those from Scott, and but then, but I think that may have had a big part of why, especially in basketball.
Yeah.
It's why that the 90s kind of got it for both, because Scott, you had Derek Keaton, Kyle Keaton, and if Justin Keaton would have been, still with the state, and me and Derek always talked about if at the one time when they were talking about consolidating high schools, and, if you'd had Derek, Kyle, Justin, Troy Yaden, Rodney Dale, me on the same team with Jay Seals, Byron Billingsley, all those guys. What could have been?
Well, I mean, you squeezed me and Rick out of a job. I know that.
Well, there probably wasn't a ball big enough, though, what I was thinking.
He just had to alternate. Yeah, you're probably right about that. Now, and I don't want to mention this. Obviously, 92 was the state championship in football. It's the 30-year anniversary. So I don't think it was a mystery we were going to try to get Stan on this year. The question was when were we going to get him on? And he mentions Tim Neville donating his time and these things with the. When I called Stan to ask him if he could come be on this, he was half talking to me and half taking up money and tickets for Little League up in Sevier County. Yeah, for the Little League, donating his time. So I mean, here's somebody who recognizes and respects that people gave their time to him, and he's giving back on that. And so that struck me when I was talking to you.
Oh, well.
But now let's get to some questions. So now you talked about the basketball start. When was the first football start? Who was the coach?
As far as
your middle
school?
Yeah.
Well, Coach Robert
Coach
Wright
Yep.
and Dr. Tim West.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't have his special. But but to lead up to that, Coach Wright left after my 7th grade year.
Yeah.
And Coach Wright, I was devastated, so that you know that. But I hold Coach Wright in high regard, one of my favorite all-time coaches ever. But leading up our spring session, Coach May led it because we didn't have a coach.
Yeah.
And some of the football players that were seniors, I've been trying to rack my brain. Maybe, for some reason, I remember David Edwards because I guess he was, one of the guys that you remember. So I think that was part of what helped lead us in, because we had a special group. The 92 team, we had 11 starting players on offense. Had been together since basically the 2nd, 3rd grade. And we played football in the old blacktop parking lot up there in the school since the 2nd and 3rd grade together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that was a big factor. Because just having the quarterback of that team, I never considered myself a good quarterback. I was a quarterback on a great team. Because that's what we were. We're a team.
Right.
And nobody cared who scored. Nobody cared who got the accolades. And the guys that didn't, the offensive linemen and Art D. I actually went back and looked, just trying to be prepared.
Yeah.
But our defense that year, 22 points was the most points we give up in a game. It was against Livingston. We give up 21 against Greenback. And out of the other 13 games, nobody scored over 20.
Yeah.
So defense and our offensive line, because we averaged probably 235, 240.
Yeah.
On the offensive line. And
Name them off.
Big.
Offensive line that
Jude Jeffers, David Payne, Teddy Carson, Patrick Chitwood, Robbie West, and Willie Bowitt was our 6. David Payne was a senior, but he could play all 5 positions. Yeah. And so those guys were the real reason, because you had them big hosses up front. We ran the ball. I heard Matthews the other night, throw me under the bus about bringing in Seals to throw.
Yeah. What about that?
Yeah, I know.
Disgusting.
Imagine Matthews. Yeah. Gosh. But you didn't have to throw the ball when you run for 300 yards a game.
Yeah.
I threw 100 passes in 15 games. 6 passes a game. And half of those were screens.
Yeah.
But like I do remember that I would always tell Coach May that I said, Coach, we're going to throw it 25 times tonight. He said, we are? I said, yeah, but 20 of them are in warm-ups. So, but he always liked to give me a hard time on that. But that was the real reason. I think that camaraderie, and 4 or 5 of our guys had older brothers that played at Oneida. And, you want to outdo your brother.
Yeah.
And like I said, Mark Matthews, Jeff Owens, you know, those guys, I remember those guys since I was little.
Your brother,
Yeah, my
Stephen
brother
Pennington.
Stephen Pennington.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing. It's kind of a legacy deal with my family. You know, my dad played football and basketball. Of course, you know, I think in basketball his senior year they went like 22-2 with Coach Doxson. And I think Tommy Perkey was on that team, maybe MC Bowett, people like that. Had a real good team. And then Coach May actually coached my sister in basketball, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the first years they went to the state tournament.
Right.
Was Lisa Pennington and Paula Watson, and I think Carrie Bowett was a freshman that year. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Maybe it's been a while. And well, then, like I said, my brother Stephen played for Coach May in football, and then I played for Coach May. My niece played at Oneida. My nephew played at Oneida, so it's kind of like a family deal, you know.
Yeah. Now, are you like a coach? Because I talk about this a lot. For some reason, I think about this a lot. Coaches, more than the wins, they remember the losses. Is there some? I mean, because you guys got close the 2 years before you knocked down the door and got that state championship. You had a couple of disappointments those 2 years before that. You were contenders.
Well, and I heard Mike Swain said 90. It was actually 89 when Jimmy that field goal kicked, and it's funny because I was back behind the goal post too, and it looks like it went straight over top of the goal upright, but the official. But so I was a freshman. We went 12-2 that year against Donaldson Christian, but probably the loss. You know, we lost to Chad Pennington, I think, or it may have been Brian Langley was quarterback at Webb then, my sophomore year. But I lost 3 games as a starter, as a junior and a senior. And all 3 games were in overtime. Lost to Greenback in overtime in the second round of the playoffs on that muddy field.
Yeah. You'd beat them in the year.
Yeah, beat them during 31-30, probably one of the best games.
Yeah.
And then we lost to Cofield that same year in overtime.
That's
down
91.
there. 91. Yeah, 91, my junior year. And then my senior year we lost to Livingston. And actually that game was probably the game that, hey, we need to focus. Because, you know, everybody knows the story of the can you see it, Coach May coming in and doing that. But there was Coach May had changed a little. I mean, not saying. I mean, he was tough. I mean, I had to follow Richard May, his own son, at quarterback. I had Jimmy as my quarterback's coach.
Yeah.
No pressure, you know. But Coach May had loosened up a little, you know, and I think that was a big deal, you know.
To me, that regular season game against Greenback your senior year, when instead of just going to the locker room right before halftime, he turned you loose to Mark Martin, who was here just a moment ago. That play stands out to me.
Well, that's probably people will ask me what's your fondest memory, and I guess that is my fondest memory of a play.
You were still down.
Yeah, we were down 21-10. Greenback just went in, and they kicked off with 20 seconds to go. And I think we returned it to the 20. There's 12 seconds. I can remember it like it was yesterday. Returned it to the 20, 12 seconds to go, and we ran, we're in the veer. We ran a draw to Doug Pike, the fullback. And he gets 20 yards, but he gets knocked out of bounds at the 40 with 4 seconds to go. You know, if he gets knocked out of bounds, half's over.
Yeah.
But Coach May's like, and Coach May had a knack of putting in a play here or there to use in a game. The Greenback game in the second round, my junior year, that Mud Bowl, we were down 7-0. Well, we put it in on Thursday. I remember telling Kevin and Mel Akers, when they called the games back in the day.
Yeah.
I saw them at Walmart Thursday night before the game, and I said, "Hey, we put this play in. You know, just be on the lookout for this." And we ran Shane Keaton in motion, which most of my passes went to Shane Keaton. Well, everybody went. Well, here's Anthony Sexton tied in. I remember the guy from Channel 6, I think it looks like Mike Dickey running down through there. But nobody. I mean, I just tossed it to him. He went like 70 yards for a touchdown. Yeah. But it was little plays. But we ran the exact same play, except we sent Scott Owens on a flare. I faked the draw, and Mark was running the backside post, and I pretty much just threw it to the middle of the field, and I didn't see him catch it. I get hit. I'm laying on the ground, and it's kind of one of those you roll over, and I see our stands going nuts, and I'm like, what happened, you know? And I get up, I finally see Mark going across the goal line, and I think that propelled us. You know, we end up coming back winning 38-21.
Yeah.
That game, and
And
that
then you had to go
stretch-
back there. So
yeah, which was a raw deal. 'Cause
Right.
I think we're 12-1,
Yeah.
going to the fourth round of the playoffs. And they're 9-4, and we're having to go to Greenback.
Yeah, we're not going to change that, Stan. But
Yeah.
listen, here's the thing. So, was there ever a game where you thought we're not going to get this, and you did? Because you're a pretty confident guy. You're about to surprise me if you're going to answer this, but I want you to answer it honestly. Was there a game you thought, I don't think we can do this?
Well, that's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day that when I played, I never got nervous.
An intimidating team.
I'm not,
though. Was
and
there a
I
team?
can confirm the Bill Hall throwing up before every game
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
story. Yeah, I can confirm that. And hopefully I can get to his technical story better than the one he did before I go. But I got more nervous before my son's games than
Yeah.
I did mine. But maybe one time was the game we was really wanting real bad was that Cofield game my senior year.
Because they'd got you
They
twice.
got us twice, and they had the shirts that said Lightning Strikes, and then the next year Lightning Strikes twice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there may have been a rumor going around that some of the Oneida players had the Storm is Over shirts on underneath their jerseys during that game. I'm not going to confirm or deny those rumors, but that was a game we were really, and we dominated them. I mean, I think they ran 8 plays in the second half. I mean, we just ran the ball, and offensive line dominated. And as I told a story when we were trying to get the stadium named after Coach May, it was the first time I'd ever shared it. I'd never even told Jimmy until he heard me tell it that night. Is I'm walking down to the old tunnel down there to the underneath the old gym, going to our locker room. Coach Chris from Cofield, Coach Mayer's down there talking, and I'm walking down, and old Coach Chris, of course, he's a good guy. I mean, I love.
Yes.
Last time before he passed away, I'd seen him, and
Great
give me
coach.
great coach, and he gave me a hug. Man, he said, "Man, we had some battles," but he said, "Coach May," he said, "if it'd been a dry field tonight, it'd been a different story." I never will forget. Coach May looked at him and goes, "Yeah." He said it'd been 35-0, and that's the first time. And Coach May
So
gave
what
me
was the final?
14-0.
Yeah.
And Coach May gave me that wink as I was walking, and that was the bond, kind of like, don't tell anybody I said that, but, you know, that was a side you'd never really seen of him. Because
Right.
he was not about being me and Mark Martin were talking about, they were talking about this.
Yeah.
Well, against Dawson Christian, which you'll be doing, I think, coming up on your recap, and Mark catches a pass. I'm gonna throw him and he's on film going like that. Well, everybody, we kind of got a little bit, you know, we thought this is our time. These
Yeah.
next 4 out of 5 games, but Coach May reeled that back in. He
Yeah.
said, you know, act like you've been there. We're not going to do this showboat stuff.
Well, and he's not here to defend himself, but he'd tell you, John Strunk, in a camp game, against one of Coach May's old teams, he caught a touchdown that he'd been John with a cornerback back and forth, and he bowed. I mean, there's nobody there to even see it, and Coach May ran to the goal line to intercept him and tell him that wasn't going to happen anymore. Now, okay, Stan, so state championship, bringing that home. I mean, it's still the only time Oneida's won a state championship. Is that what people always? I mean, you are a basketball guy too, and maybe we'll have basketball time later. But I mean,
Yeah, that's
what's it like? That's what's associated with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said. I think it all started back with we had the great leadership our freshman year. You know, we had the Vince Owens. You know, was a senior captain that year. Ron Keaton was on that team. All those guys, guys I played with, Jared Henry, Kevin Terry, good role model guys, and But then we had the mean guys. You know, Bart Canfield was on that team my freshman year, and but those guys showed us the leadership to get to where I think.
So it was as much about them.
Yeah,
I mean, what they
and
instilled in you guys.
That's the thing, and we got down. Well, you talk about the game that we got down. I mean, the championship game, we're down 10-0, and we've run one play.
Yeah.
That was Doug Pike fumbled. No, me and Doug argued back and forth on that first play. After
Well, he's not here to defend
I know.
himself.
Well, that's why I say it's on Doug. But no, Doug will tell you it was his fault, and I always tell you it's my fault. But they drove 80 yards and scored 7-0. First play we're running the veer, and we fumble, me and Doug, and they recover. But the defense stood and held them and kicked the field goal. But we're down 10-0 in the first quarter of the state championship game. And you're kind of like, but it just shows the resilience. I probably played the worst I've ever played, probably as far as reading the option, because they were doing something. I mean, they were basically putting 10 in the box. And, they had some college players and that went on to college.
Right.
And but Byron Billingsley made the interception right before halftime, and through the fade, the Mark made a heck of a catch in the back of the end zone, toe tap back there. And then, I kind of remember I remember walking by our fans and said, they're going to have to score more than 10 to beat us. I mean, I think. But then we come out and drove and scored that little middle fullback screen to Doug, who got the Franco Harris immaculate reception.
Right.
If you watch it,
Yes.
it's hard to tell.
Hard to pick up. Yes.
Yeah, and we score. Well, then it was just a battle. But Josh Thompson, made the play of night of history probably.
Right.
Wrestling. Josh maybe 5'10", $160, and O.J. Fleming 6'4", 185, 195. Went on to
Going
play
on to Vanderbilt.
and wrestles it away from him.
Yeah.
And the countdown of that clock. I mean, you just couldn't imagine. But somebody said there was a sign in Oneida that said, "Lights won't leave, turn the lights off," because I've never seen. That's probably most people have ever been to a Class A, game. Yeah. But the parade through town when we come back was a memory. But my fondest memory, and matter of fact, I was going through my old scrapbook and that my mama made for me. I got to mention my mom since I mentioned everybody else, and says I'm the reason that she had to get knee replacement because she had to walk up down the bleachers all these years.
That's probably true.
But about a week later, we go to the junior high or the elementary school, and they set up tables, and we're signing autographs for the little kids in elementary, and that means more to me than I saw that picture, and it's actually there, and that was just so surreal, I guess, just thinking that those. And I wish I could remember who it was, because a few years ago when I come to a game, I was in elementary school. I got your autograph, and I was like, man, that's cool.
Now I'm going to have to accelerate. We're going to have to get you back for basketball,
Okay.
okay? So I got to ask you one more thing, a couple more things. So you went on to Maryville to play basketball, right? But you weren't as busy during football season, so you decided to go into competition against me and Mark. You joined forces with Kevin Akers and Mel Akers to work against us. That's what Mark's whole thing is about, just so you know. That's why he's – but now –
that ain't all what's wrong with Mark.
Well, you're right. So he's a Cowboy fan. But anyway,
Easy.
no offense. Now, but you go into this unholy alliance with Kevin Akers and the broadcasting thing. And so – but you're doing – what about – I'm going to ask you this question. 1994, that team had to move to 2A in 93. Only lost 3 games, picked to finish, 6th. And then 2 years after yours, they're undefeated going into the state semifinals. Would that team, if it had stayed in single A, would it have won the state?
No doubt. I think, it could have been 2 or 3 more.
Here comes a harder question. Theoretically, 92, 94 play each other. I mean, you got some of the same players, right? Key players.
Yeah.
Phil Meredith, Cully Phillips, all these guys, Jason Pike. They're on the same. What? You don't even
Seriously?
you don't have to answer that.
I'll answer it. 92.
92.
By offensive line default.
Offensive line?
Offensive line. I don't think any I'll stack up those 6 guys with any offensive line that's come through.
Yeah. I mean, they took down Alcoa.
Yeah, well, that
Sweetwater.
was when Alcoa.
Yeah.
That's because I was.
Chad Pennington.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a fair question.
Yeah,
It'd have been a good game.
Yeah, it would be.
Stan, we've got 3 minutes. Don't want to leave anybody hanging.
Yeah.
You brought up the Bill Hall story. Can you tell that story in
Oh
3
well,
minutes?
this when he was talking about the hanging himself with his tie. I think I was a junior, and we're playing York at home, and it get a little chippy. Of course, so Spencer Beatty from York, I'm friends with him today, and we always talk, but it's getting a little chippy out there. It's getting emotional, you know. I was probably a little emotional guy back in basketball season, and well, we're down underneath the locker room. Well, here comes this trash can comes flying down, and this Coach Hall, he kicked it or something, and guys, you got to keep your composure. You got to stay calm. You can't get all worked up. You got to stay. Sorry about technical, guys. But no, basketball was I'm just as proud as that of the first time since 1929 that we went to the state tournament is just as much as that state championship in football. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm a basketball guy, but you know, that meant a lot to me because that was probably the first year that we'd ever won the regular season district, the district tournament, and the region tournament, and then won the sub-state game and made it. And you know, that sticks out to me. And if we wouldn't have drew Pickett County first round game, it may have been a little different. And the fun fact of that, if we'd have made it to the finals, we would have played BGA for the championship. Yeah. I think is the way it worked, because I think they won it in basketball that year.
Yeah.
All right, so before you slide away from here, we've talked so much about the games that are coming up this weekend, and there's not really much more that we can say about that other than just to remind everybody that they're coming up Friday night. Oneida hosts York. Scott goes to Carter. We'll do something. I'll ask all three of you guys to pick winners in those games if you want to, and if you want to bow out, either of you guys can bow out. You can't bow out, Stan. We're not giving you that option. And so let's start with Scott High and Carter. And Rick Scott has had good crowds everywhere whether they've been at home or on the road at South Dole. They've had good crowds. There'll be a good crowd at Carter Friday night. 7 o'clock start in that game. Who do you like in that game?
At Carter.
It's at Carter.
I don't like Carter. I'm going to go with Scott.
Okay.
See, that's me. I told Ben a while ago. I said I would go opposite of what Katie and Chloe in their predictions with both games. So that means that I'll pick the Highlanders. We're going to win a game. Why can't he be this week?
And maybe it's a little bit weird to be saying when you're still looking for your first win to talk about playoffs. But the playoffs are the goal for every high school team. And if you're Scott High, this game Friday night, if you want to make the playoffs, you've got to win Friday night at Carter. Okay.
I don't get to pick it?
Go ahead.
I'm going to go with Scott High. I was there Friday night, and you know, I understand what happened, what Coach Golden was talking about, and I understand, you know, this program, it's got stops and starts going on right now. There's like the South Dole game. What about that? I mean, you weren't expecting that, and then you weren't expecting this Friday night against Austin East. I like your coaching staff, and I like, you know, it's going to take a little time when you got a brand new coaching staff. It's going to take a little time. I think this is the week.
Well, don't forget, I said I would go opposite of what they did. I'll pick Oneida.
Okay.
Knock on wood, no bad luck or anything.
So let's talk about that one. Oneida and York Friday night. We talked about the crowd that'll be in East Knoxville, Strawberry Plains for the Scott High game. If you're an Oneida person and you're in Oneida, I mean, if you can't, you got to get out Friday night because this is a huge, huge game Friday night. 8 o'clock start. It's what do we call it? The Battle of the Gorge, I think, is the unofficial name for this.
I think it was, yeah.
So yeah, Oneida and York Friday night. Much improved York team with Derwin Wright back at the helm. Who do you like in that game?
You know I'm a homer.
There you go, brother.
I've only cheered against Oneida one time in my entire life, and that was this past year at the Christmas tournament when my son played against them. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. But Oneida, I bleed orange.
And I know you're taking Oneida.
Yes, sir.
You're going to take Oneida, too.
I mean, you know, Coach May would tell you
that'd be uncomfortable, wouldn't it?
He would tell you this. Well, I'm talking about Coach May Sr. You know, it'll be like if you were at Notre Dame and saying we're going to play Marshall this week, and Marshall's the greatest. Oh, yeah. That reminds me. Marshall did do it, right? So, no, I think this is a great matchup. I think so much is on the line. I love our coaches. And I think Oneida's going to get this one, and I think it's going to be really close, like they all have been. And so I think Oneida's going to get York, but they're going to have to work harder than they've worked in the first 4 games to secure this, and they will.
All right, should be a great Friday night of football, and a reminder for you, we will have both games. Pregame, Baby J's pregame report from Carter will start at 6:20, and then just as Scott and Carter are kicking off, you guys will be starting with the Baby J's pregame report from Dr. Emmy Thompson Field as Oneida hosts York. Also, we're going to remind you next week is homecoming for both Scott High and Oneida. Weather permitting, next Monday night we will do this from – now you won't be there, Tim Smith.
That's correct.
Kevin Akers will stand
That's correct.
in your place. Tim's going to let work interfere for the next couple of weeks, and that's understandable. Next Monday night, weather permitting, we will do this live from Scott High. It's their big student bonfire night, and I've been told, Rick, that there may be some other surprises coming next Monday night. So I don't know if anything is
They don't tell us
yet.
anything till we get there. So.
Well, it should be fun if it all pans out, and, of course, again, everything is weather permitting. Homecoming next week for Oneida as well. We got a big homecoming parade coming up next Friday. We'll be covering that as well. So something a little different and extra for both teams next week. Until Friday night, thank you for joining us, and good luck to both the Highlanders and the Indians, and good night.